Imagine you're in a courtroom and you are one of the jury. Two attorneys stand up and give passionate arguments. One says that the defendant is guilty. The other says that he is innocent. But here's the thing. Only one of them can be right. The person either did the crime or they didn't. But now imagine that the argument that you're evaluating isn't about a crime, but about your eternity, the existence of God, the truth of the resurrection, the claims of Christianity. See, they are also either true or not. Some say that there is no evidence for any of it. Others say faith means that you don't need evidence. But here's the truth. Everyone lives by evidence. You've never met George Washington, but you believe that he was real. You've never been to the center of the earth, but you trust the scientists who say that it is hot. You don't test your seatbelt every time you get in a car. You trust that it'll work because it always has. So when Christian apologetics talks about following the evidence or says the evidence points to Jesus, we need to stop and ask, what exactly do we mean by evidence? And that's the question that we're covering in this video. So let's define it. What do we mean by evidence? Well, in legal law, the United States courts defines evidence as testimony, documents, or physical objects, anything that helps prove or disprove a fact. Now, in philosophy, evidence is anything that makes a belief more or less likely to be true. See, that's how it's described in the Oxford Dictionary of Philosophy. Not as absolute proof, but as something that makes a claim more reasonable based on what we know. Now, in real life, most of us treat evidence as whatever helps form a reasonable conclusion. In this video, we're going to walk through 6 key truths about evidence that can reshape the way that you think about God, truth, and faith. This 6-part structure is actually inspired by the work of apologist J. Warner Wallace, who is also a former cold case detective. In his book, Forensic Faith, he makes the argument that the same rules we use to evaluate evidence in a courtroom could also be applied to spiritual matters. So, the first truth is arguments aren't evidence. Just because someone makes a confident or an emotional argument doesn't mean what they're saying is actually true. In fact, instructions given to jurors in the U.S. courts are clear about this. I quote, "Arguments and statements by lawyers are not evidence." See, lawyers aren't witnesses. Their words can't substitute for actual facts or testimony. Their role is to help interpret the evidence, not to replace it. And if jurors remember the facts differently than what the attorneys present them, they're told to trust their own memory of the evidence. Now, this same principle applies to when we examine the case for Christianity. Just because someone sounds persuasive or passionate doesn't make their claim true. We need more than just a good presentation. We need a solid foundation of evidence. This is why Paul instructs believers in 1 Thessalonians 5:21 to test them all. Hold on to what is good. We're not called just to accept something because it sounds persuasive. We're called to examine it carefully and cling to what is true. Now, the second truth is evidence comes in many forms. Like we said before, in legal law, evidence can include testimony, documents, physical objects, anything that helps prove or disprove the fact. Now, in real life, we also rely on many forms of evidence. We trust eyewitnesses. We believe in historical records. We interpret people's behaviors and or patterns. And the same is true when we examine the case for Christianity. The evidence also comes in many forms: eyewitness testimony, historical documents, archaeological support, transformed life, the internal consistency of Scripture. Just like Luke says at the beginning of his gospel, he says, I myself have carefully investigated everything from the beginning. So his readers know the certainty of the things they have been taught. See, that's the language of evidence and investigation, not blind belief. Now, the third truth is anyone who makes a claim has a responsibility. So what does this mean? It means if someone says God exists, well, now that's a truth claim. They should be able to offer some reasons for this. But now if someone says God does not exist, that is also a truth claim, and it carries the same burden of proof. See, in any worldview conversation, everyone is responsible for backing up their position. This is not a one-sided test. That's why, for the Christian worldview, Peter in 1 Peter 3:15 says, always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect. Now, our fourth truth. The fourth truth is you don't have to rule out every possibility. Just make the most reasonable conclusion. See, in court, jurors are told to actually avoid speculation. See, the standard isn't beyond all possible doubt, but beyond a reasonable doubt. In the same way, Christianity doesn't have to disprove every possible alternative. The real question isn't, could have something else happened? It's, what's the most reasonable explanation based on the evidence we have? It's not about having absolute certainty. It's about reaching a confident conclusion based on solid evidence. Now, our fifth truth. The fifth truth is the more evidence you have, the stronger your case. Christianity isn't built on just one piece of evidence. It's supported by many kinds of evidence from different angles. There's historical evidence, like the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus, recorded by eyewitness and early followers. There's philosophical reasoning, like how the universe began, why we believe in right and wrong, and what explains consciousness and our purpose in life. There is personal evidence, people around the world across centuries whose lives have been radically changed by following Jesus. And there is written evidence, how the Bible fits together, even though it was written over many centuries by different people. It is also, though, important to note that we do not just rely on the Bible as evidence. There's evidence outside of the Bible, too. There are non-Christian historians, some even hostile to Christianity, who confirm key details about Jesus and the early church. There's archaeological discoveries that have supported many of the Bible's people, places, and cultural practices. See, in court, jurors don't usually make a decision based on one big clue. They look at lots of smaller pieces that all point in the same direction. That's what makes the case for Christianity strong. Not just one verse or just one personal story, but a whole collection of evidence that works together. So the sixth truth. The sixth truth is eyewitnesses are reliable unless proven otherwise. See, in legal court, jurors are given clear guidelines for deciding if a witness is believable. They're told to consider things like, did the witness really have a chance to see or hear what they are saying? How strong does their memory seem? Do they seem honest, or might they be biased or hiding something? Does their testimony match up with the other evidence? Have they been consistent in what they're saying over time? Now, we can use these same principles when we look at the authors of the New Testament, and you will see that they hold up remarkably well. They claim to be eyewitnesses or closely connected to eyewitnesses. Their writings are early, not legendary additions. Their stories are internally consistent, while still, though, reflecting their own personal styles and their own personal perspective on the events. They had no reason to lie. In fact, many were willing to suffer and die for what they believed. But we always have to remember, in the end, we know that this evidence doesn't save anyone. Only Jesus does. But the evidence still plays a powerful role. It helps remove doubts and clear away objections. It shows that Christianity is based on truth, not blind faith. And it gives seekers a confidence to explore what they believe. See, evidence isn't just for courtrooms. It's how we make decisions every day. The Bible offers evidence, but so does nature, reason, history, and real life experience. But it's not just about having evidence. It's about learning how to evaluate it honestly and consistently. See, Jesus never called us to blind faith. He called us to love God with all our heart, soul, and mind. If you are still exploring what you believe, don't stop asking questions. And if you're already convinced, get equipped to share what you know with gentleness and respect. And that's what this channel is all about. Here before the gates, I tackle one big question at a time. Questions about God, the Bible, truth, and the Christian faith. If you want to go deeper in what you believe and why, hit the subscribe button. Leave me a comment with your biggest question. And like this video if it helped you think more clearly. Because the truth can stand up to your toughest questions. And the truth is worth finding before the gates.